Hey, what's up, guys? We'll get started in just a minute. Just give me 2 seconds here. You know, I always do this. I forget to untangle the microphone before we start. So I have to do that now. Hold on. Alright, we're good. I even tell myself that before I get all set up. I'm like, I gotta untangle the mic, and then it never materializes. But anyway, guys, I want to wish you a very happy Friday Eve. It is Thursday, March 20th, March 30th. Wow, my God. Tomorrow is the last day of March. Can you guys believe that? It's already April. I mean, where has the year gone? I mean, it's just insane. So today's Thursday, March 30th, 2023. It is 9:09 p.m. We are reporting live from Columbus Circle. This is 59th Street. I'm sitting on the park bench here, right at the main opening to Central Park. To my right is the beautiful Deutsche Bank Towers. I know I said I was going to be streaming in Lower Manhattan today, but oh my God, the day just totally got away from me. It was a really, really busy day, but very productive day. Today was an awesome day. I was able to tour some really interesting pieces of real estate, some major developments here in New York City, so I'll keep you guys updated on that. Really beautiful stuff. You know, one of the buildings I was in today was actually down on Grand Street. Now, for those of you who remember when we do our live streams in Soho, I mean, one of the things I love the most about Soho are those amazing buildings with all the fire escapes, the amazing loft-style apartments. You know, these can have 10 to 12-foot ceilings, sometimes even 15-foot ceilings in there. And it is just, it's really a sight to behold. So maybe I'll be able to share some photos of the particular building. If you guys want to check out the listing for yourself, check out 74 Grand Street. I think there's about 6 units in the entire building. One of them is under contract right now, and the others are for sale. I mean, just an absolutely gorgeous building. But more to follow on that. If we want to talk about the equity market today, everybody, the S&P 500 yet again followed through today. We are trading above the 50-day and 200-day moving average. However, we did close a little bit off the high. I think the high of the day was 40.57. We closed right at 40.50. So, you know, we'll see what happens tomorrow. So the S&P was up about 0.5% today. If we take a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or the Dow 30, the Dow is also up about 0.5% or 141 points, closing at 32,859. Now again, remember, the Dow is the only major equity indice that is trading below the 50-day moving average. So we are trading above the 200, but we are below the 50, which makes sense, right? Because in 2022, we're seeing outperformance by a lot of the Dow stocks, right? The Dow Industrials. These companies are more established. They tend to be not so tech heavy or tech focused, and those type of stocks, I guess you could say, value outperformed growth in 2022. But you know, we're starting to have a little bit of a turn towards growth again. So if we take a look at the NASDAQ composite today, we were up almost 1%. We were about 87 points higher on the day, closing above that big psychological 12,000 level. So we closed at 12,013, again trading above the 50-day and the 200-day. Let's take a look at crude oil real quick before we get started. Crude rallied today. We're now back above $70, trading at $74.49. Now keep in mind, we are below the 50 and the 200-day, with some key levels, the 50-day being at 75 bucks. All right, guys, let me go ahead and close up my laptop here. It is a cold one. I just want to warn you guys. So what does it say up there? 41 degrees. So if it's 41 degrees on the thermostat, let me show you guys. Hold on. If you could see all the way up there. Usually there's like a Gemini logo or an advertisement up there. If it says 41 degrees up there, it's probably more like 38 with the wind chill. It is quite windy today. But let's say hello to everybody in the chat. I see Gary Carpenter. Good to see you. RJ is here. welcome, welcome. Danny is here. 82 Windows 82. Spiderbug, welcome. Steph UH, Dan Sang, Julia M, welcome. British Gray is here from Tampa, Florida. Austin City Limits, Gregory, Rafed, Richard Vogel, Jafet, Hawaii, welcome. Edward Adams, Tom Barry, 45 is here from Canada, welcome. Good to see you. So we're going to be staying local tonight. I do apologize. We were not able to get down to Lower Manhattan. Had a pretty busy day. But before we get started, once again, we are here at Columbus Circle, but I want to show you guys a pretty interesting shot of Billionaires Row here. Somebody is, Jack S is saying, hey Tom, did you see Ackman's tweets today about AI? I know he is one of the greats, but holy smokes, he panicked us in a couple sentences. It was pretty much him saying we need to put a pause on AI technology. Is that what he was saying? Or was he saying the opposite? I saw something about it, but look, I respect Bill Ackman. I really like the guy. I've actually learned a lot from him, you know, consuming a lot of his material in relation to the investment business. But look, I mean, he's been writing some very lengthy tweets lately. The vast majority of his tweets have been novel-esque. Takes quite a long time to read it. But I generally agreed with most of his takes about the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, but there was some things that I disagreed with. Check out this Tesla taxi here. This is a really nice cab. But I don't know, let me know in the chat, what was the tweet about AI? I'm interested to see. Sally is here, welcome. I do want to let everybody know, ABX Girl is here. Tomorrow is Friday, obviously, but there will be no live stream. So I'm going to be doing some traveling tomorrow. I'm flying back to Miami right around 7 o'clock at night. So obviously that is pretty much the time when we do the live stream. So I just want to let everybody know tomorrow is going to be a night off, so I want you guys to enjoy your Friday night. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of a long weekend, I guess, because we won't be streaming, but we should be back on Saturday or Sunday. We'll definitely be back Sunday for the Markets a Look Ahead live stream, but Saturday I'm going to be pretty busy too. I have some inspectors coming in on Saturday morning, and then I have a couple other contractors coming in later to look at the backyard, so I'm probably going to be pretty preoccupied there. Just want to let you guys know. Hey, Atomic Punk NYC says good evening, good to see you, welcome. Danny says please film the white car you just passed. Maybe it was back there, I'm not too sure what it was. Meg Lowe is here, thank you so much for being here. Mike C says Ackman said AI is dangerous, but it's more dangerous to let our enemies develop it first. Well, I guess I definitely agree with that. Now, I think we talked about this before, but Mike C, I generally agree, because here's the biggest risk that I see with AI. And yes, it's all of the job displacement and things like that, but AI, it definitely has a bias at first, because humans are programming the AI, right? So if humans program the AI, you could essentially program it to have, you know, different, you know, narratives and different biases and the like. So I would say that's probably the biggest risk. The second biggest risk is obviously all of the job displacement. But my take on this is right along the lines of Andrew Yang, which is surprising because I disagree with him on a lot. But I think he hits the nail on the head when it relates to AI. Real quick, this is 157. This was the first Billionaires Row building developed by the Extel Group. This is the building that kicked off the entire trend here on Billionaires Row. Right here you have the New York Athletic Club. But governments should never intervene with technological advancement just because they fear it could displace jobs. And I think Andrew Yang is bang on that. You know, think about, you know, it's kind of ironic. We're passing a horse and buggy here at Central Park, but there was a time in New York's history, and the United States history, and the history of the world, where this was the preferred medium of transportation, literally right here, right, a horse and buggy. And there were lobbyists and there were people saying that, we don't want automobiles. We'll segment automobiles to be, this side of Central Park, and then the horse and buggies can be on the other side because we don't want to displace the business. And it's just kind of silly, and it's just kind of stupid thinking back on it. So AI is no different, right? Any other major technology is no different. We live in a very, very big world. It's almost as if, we throw around the term globalization all the time, but it's true. It's a hyper-competitive world out there, and the United States is supposed to be a leader and set a standard in technological advancement and development. And just because we're scared that it's going to, throw people out of work, especially as it relates to other technologies too, if you think about autonomous driving, there's been, some politicians on both sides of the aisle that have actually been coming out and saying that we should ban autonomous vehicles because there's so many truck drivers in the United States. Now, I think that's the complete wrong way to go about it. I think the right way to go about it is acknowledging that it's going to be a problem, acknowledging that a lot of people are going to be displaced, but instead of holding back the innovation, we should be investing in retraining and retooling our citizens for a new modern society. I mean, that would be my opinion. Guys, check this out. This is the JW Marriott Essex House. This is one of the many 5-star hotels here, a very famous hotel right here on Central Park South. Really beautiful. And on the right-hand corner of your screen, you can see Central Park Tower. But very seldom do I ever show you guys the JW Marriott Essex House from this side. Lost Boy is here, welcome. Hey, Kevin. Good to see you. Gary Carpenter, welcome. John Abraham. Zach Drew says the Center for AI and Digital Policy filed a complaint with the FTC today, asking them to investigate and suspend OpenAI's ChatGPT. Interesting. Andrew Lee's from Queens is here. Good to see you. Danny, I cannot name any famous resident or famous guests at the hotel. Drew is here. Good to see you. I don't know, but yeah, I guess I would agree with Ackman's tweet then, because selfishly enough, being American, I want to have the United States lead the way in technological advancement. Now, I do want to recommend a book. I've recommended this book multiple times, but I really do believe that we've been seeing this buzzword thrown around, right? AI, everything is machine learning. Every single company out there is marketing their product and service saying it's so great because they use AI, right? About 90% of it's probably nonsense, and 10% is actually probably useful stuff. I think ChatGPT is very useful, but there's a lot of other startups that, it's just using it as a marketing tool. So a really good book about AI, and not just AI and machine learning, but the competition between the United States and China as it relates to these new technologies, is a book called AI Superpowers. Okay, I would very highly advise everybody to buy the book. It's probably $20 off Amazon, or you could probably just get it used somewhere. But the author is Kai-Fu Lee. And we've talked about this book multiple times, but we do have a lot of new people here. And Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, before he retired, he was actually the president of Google China during the tech and telecom boom. And if you remember correctly, back in the day, leading up to the 2000s, there was really no innovation as it relates to technological advancements in China. It was mainly all just copycats of American companies and companies in Western Europe. And that was true. But now it's very different. There's actually real innovation and very successful companies being developed and coming out of China right now. And in the book, AI superpowers. Kai-Fu Lee sort of describes some of those risks, describes some of the the bull cases for that, the bear cases for that. And I think as we move into this world, an AI-powered world, I think it's important for people to at least have a baseline education on it. So once again, the book is AI Superpowers by Dr. Kai-Fu Lee. Now, when he retired, I will just say this real quick. This is 106 Central Park South. I always like to point out this building. This used to be my old building during the pandemic. I scored a really, really nice deal in this building right here. I rented a studio apartment on Central Park South for just about $2,000. I think with all of the utilities and everything, it came to just a hair over $2,000, I think. But yeah, 106 Central Park South, great building. Literally your backyard is Central Park. I mean, you really can't get better than that. I would 100% live in that building again. But the last thing I'll say about that sort of book recommendation is that when Kai-Fu Lee retired from Google, right, he was the president of Google China, trying to get Google search into China, which obviously wasn't successful, right? He now runs a venture capital firm that is dedicated to investing in early stage startup companies in China. And you could actually look at his portfolio. So if you go to Sinovationventures.com or you just Google the name of the venture capital firm, it's kind of cool, all the different companies that are coming out of China. So very different, quite the contrary to what it used to be when a lot of these Chinese startups were just knockoffs of American companies. It's actually not like that anymore. There's some real innovation coming out of there. So, Ratfink, you're right. Says, yeah, I remember the apartment when we used to do the skateboarding streams. Yeah, those were the days. I can't believe it was almost 2 years ago now. Kind of crazy. Hey, Bree Grams is here. Good to see you, Bree. Welcome. Mike C says, what an experience to live that close to Central Park in your 20s. I mean, it really was an amazing experience. Now, it kind of was once in a lifetime because, I mean, knock on wood, we'll never experience a global pandemic again in our lifetime, please God. But look, this was during a time where things were really crazy in New York. I mean, people were moving out of the city, but I think a lot of younger people, and the data actually shows this. It's kind of funny actually how it went down. During the pandemic, a lot of older individuals, probably wealthier, that have more money and more resources to be able to, uproot their families and maybe go to the Hamptons, go to their place in Palm Beach. I think this is the restaurant at the Ritz-Carlton on Central Park. This is also another nice hotel. A lot of five-star hotels up and down Central Park South. I think this is the lounge at the Ritz-Carlton. Anyway, so a lot of older individuals were moving out, and if you look at the data, a lot of younger people started to move in. Main catalyst is we had a huge drop in rents. So people were getting really nice COVID deals, and I scored a really nice one here. And every morning waking up, being able to get a workout in at Central Park, it was awesome. Now, I think, and you guys could probably look this up yourself, if you Google the building, this is it, 106 Central Park South, I think the cheapest studio there now is maybe $3,500 to $4,000, I think. I mean, that's a huge increase, right? That's almost 100%, 50 to 100% increase in just since the pandemic recovery, if you will. Kind of wild. Yeah, Mike C says it's hard to believe it's been almost 3 years since the Big C. It's really wild. Hey, Bree Graham says end of Q1 2023 tomorrow seems impossible. We are here. Yeah, it's crazy. But guys, tomorrow is the last day of March. Think about how crazy that is. I mean, this year is just flying by. But I mean, thank God, because I'm really sick of the winter. You guys know I hate the cold, I hate the winter. Tonight it's actually kind of cold. It's 41 degrees with the wind chill. It probably feels like 38. But, we'll see. Hey, Dan Zhang, what's up? This is Tom. I will never get the same deal for my former Long Island City apartment again. That was a steal. Yeah, Dan. So Dan Zhang makes another good point. Long Island City now is a very fashionable neighborhood in New York. for multiple reasons, but I think the biggest reason is because the views from some of these high-rise apartments in Long Island City is just amazing. I mean, you're not going to get better views of Manhattan from Long Island City. Probably, I think, the only competing place that has comparable views of Midtown Manhattan and maybe even Lower Manhattan is probably Greenpoint, Brooklyn, as well as Hoboken, New Jersey, surprisingly. There's some really nice apartments in Hoboken. I think the first time I actually started to venture to Hoboken, New Jersey was, funny enough, actually during the pandemic. But yeah, Long Island City is getting bid up like crazy. You have some really big record-breaking sales there in Long Island City, Queens, so definitely a fashionable area. All right, before we head further downtown, we are now pretty much in the main drag here on Billionaires Row. You see Central Park Tower, 157, and the Steinway building. Now, does anybody remember, this police car is trying to go by here. Speaking of horse and buggy, here's another one. Now, I was briefly doing some to Walgreens. So as you guys know, we talked about this. Walgreens reported their quarterly earnings report a couple days ago. Now, usually on the stream, whenever we talk about earnings, we talk about the financials. So we really focus and drill down on, the EPS, the revenue growth, the pre-tax, after-tax margins, and sort of focus on the forward guidance. But you know what really stuck out to me from Walgreens' earnings report, which actually surprised me quite a bit? And it was a statement from management as it relates to the pharmacy side of the business, right? Which is probably, if not the biggest. So here's something interesting, and maybe you guys will be surprised, maybe you won't, but it's affecting about 1,900 Walgreens locations worldwide. And Walgreens is having a really difficult time finding employees to staff the pharmacy counter. And this includes actual pharmacists as well, not just the assistants. So big and so bad that they're starting to reduce hours. I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, we were talking about a major acquisition back in the day. I think it's going to turn out to be one of Amazon's best acquisitions ever in its history. And the company is called PillPack. Anybody familiar with that conversation? So a while back, Amazon acquired a company called PillPack, and it's essentially an e-commerce platform, essentially a pharmacy but online. So we continue to have these conversations about friction, and I think we actually talked about this when we were doing our tour of Grand Central Madison. And I said the reason why Amazon is so successful with converting customers is because the friction between the shopping experience and the checkout is unrivaled in the industry. I mean, it's gotten so good that if you order something from Amazon once and you create an account, it can even be a free account, you just click the Buy Now button. I mean, it automatically inputs your credit card information, it automatically saves your shipping address and your billing address. So the moment you put something into the cart, you just have one click. You don't have to go fumbling around the house trying to find the credit card, trying to find the billing address or the shipping address. You just have one click and it sends it there. So I think you're going to see the same thing, this Amazon effect, sweep through major pharmacies. Let's say if I'm running late, I had to spend 2 hours late at work at 7 o'clock at night. Now I have to go pick up the kids from daycare. I get to the pharmacy at 7:30. Well, with the reduced hours, it probably closes at 5:30 now. Well, now I can't get my medications. That is friction within that transaction. And I think that's going to force a lot of people to go into the marketplace and find solutions. And I think the solutions that they're going to find are probably e-commerce based pharmacies and that pretty much falls right into the hands of PillPack, which is now an Amazon company. So we're on the corner of 57th Street and 5th Avenue. We are looking at the beautiful Louis Vuitton building. Now I want to ask you guys, because we have people tuning in from all over the United States, sometimes even all over the world, have you found or have you noticed that pharmacies near and around your maybe hometown are closing early? Has it been an inconvenience for you? And if so, would you ever be open to getting your prescription medications online through one of those services like PillPack? Hey Keith, this postal delivery of needed medications could be risky. In a sense, any delivery holdup could cause health problems. That's a good point, actually, Keith. But also, couldn't we say the same thing about the reduction in the hours at the pharmacies? Because if this is just Walgreens, by the way, right? And the only reason why, I'm sort of talking about Walgreens because it was in their earnings report, it's about 1,900 store locations that the hours are affected. So yeah, I mean, people work throughout the day. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to make the 5 o'clock deadline or whenever the pharmacy closes. I think this could be another barrier that pushes people to e-commerce, and I think this could be good for Amazon. It's a good point. Andrew says a lot has to do with insurance as well. Alex Wise says CVS has been reducing its pharmacy footprint for years. OptumRx is one of the largest online pharmacies now. Now, I still go to CVS to pick up my prescription, but if it was possible for me to get my prescription online, I would do it. And I actually may look into it now. Hey, Jimmy Boyles, good to see you. Keith says several CVS's in my area have dropped 24/7 status. Well, were CVS pharmacies ever 24/7? Or were they just, I think that may have just been the store, right? The store may have been 24/7, but the pharmacy maybe not 24/7, I don't know. Hey, Lou says currently I receive meds, and the meds are sent automatically in 90 days with OptumRx. Wow, so we're actually seeing a lot of people already ordering their medications online. That's really interesting. Hey, Elizabeth Gill says reduction in hours are everywhere. You notice the restaurants have reduced hours probably because of staffing as well. So not just pharmacy, everywhere. Now, I've noticed that with some coffee shops in New York. Now, usually, I remember in my college days, I would go into a coffee shop sometimes till 11 o'clock at night. Now, the vast majority of them now close at like 7 o'clock, sometimes 8 o'clock. Hey, Tracy Sillis says I don't go to brick and mortar pharmacies. I use X-Scripts mail service and capsule delivery locally. Wow. Video says here in Atlanta we have a pharmacy 24/7 close to me. Here we have the Peninsula Hotel, very famous hotel here in New York City. Drew says scheduled medication is unavailable for shipping. Meglo says yes, Tom, the CVS stays open the same hours as the store. Copy that. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to be just another Amazon effect, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, depending on who you ask. Atomic Punk NYC says, do you want some strange third party handling your medication? Well, I wouldn't consider it a strange party, or a strange third party, right? I mean, PillPack is a legitimate company. And if, think about it like this. I have a little bit of a background working in healthcare. Well, not working in healthcare. I sold software and telecom into a lot of these home healthcare organizations. And as I've gotten to know a lot of, the director of operations at a lot of these home healthcare agencies and the like, do you know the number one reason, or I would say a big reason why a lot of the patients wind up getting admitted back to the hospital? It's because they forgot to do something so simple as take a medication, right? Let's say if you only have a home health aide come to the house for a couple hours out of the day, some seniors may suffer from Alzheimer's. They may not have immediate families, so they can be forgetful, right? And one of the things that's good about remote patient monitoring is it can automatically remind patients to just take basic medications so their blood pressure doesn't go out of whack and the like. So I was looking into PillPack, right? And another value proposition is it automatically reorders your meds for you, right? Now, as a senior or as somebody who may be, have an impairment where they may forget, to reorder their medications, to make their doctor's appointments, I think technology can automate a lot of those tasks away. And I think that could potentially even save a lot of lives, right? So once you've finished, through your entire bottle of pills, PillPack automatically knows to reorder that and re-up that subscription, and it automatically sends it to your house. You don't have to go out of the house. You don't have to go to the CVS. You don't have to go to the Walgreens and actually physically get it. They just mail it to you, which I think is good. I don't know. I think as with anything, the internet is going to continue to eat the world, and I think humans are going to transact mostly through e-commerce. And I don't think that should be exclusionary of healthcare and the pharmacy. I don't know. We'll see. Stylish Bunny says, Tom, they already have auto reorder on Amazon as well. Alex Y says, how can a pharmacy reorder without prior authorization? Well, I don't know all the intricacies, but I take a specific medication for, reasons. And I only have to go see the doctor like once a year, but every 3 months I have to get the prescription, and it's just automatically renewed through the doctor. So I never really have to physically call the pharmacy to get it. Hey, Melee is here. Good to see you. Guys, check this out. We are now outside of St. Thomas Church. We have a pretty good shot of it tonight. Beautiful architectural marvel here in New York City. I don't know, I think it's something we need to take a look at. Hey, Eli is here, says I take 3 different medications daily. That for years I used to get at Walgreens. For almost a year I have been taking all of it online. Wow. Via Express Scripts Pharmacy, free shipping and low prices. Now these are all really good data points, and I appreciate you guys participating in the chat, because even though this may not sound related to the investment business, it actually is, right? I think the best form of market research that you could do is exactly the form that Peter Lynch always used to preach, right? Getting out there, asking people, go ask your neighbors, follow your kids around, follow your wife around, follow your husband around. Where are people shopping? Where are trends going, right? You don't want to be reactionary. You want to be proactive and sort of see where the tide is shifting. And it already seems like, I wouldn't say the vast majority of the chat, but I'd say a pretty good portion has already decided to order their medications online. I think that TAM, that total addressable market, is only going to continue to grow, right? It only takes one inconvenient experience at a pharmacy, perhaps, to increase the level of friction in the transaction enough to where a person would go online and say, hey, is there a better alternative? And, I think the biggest player in the industry is probably going to be, Amazon or some other company that could fill that void. So maybe a bull thesis again. I'll have to go back into, maybe you guys could help me out with this actually. Does anybody know if Amazon posts data in terms of revenue for PillPack? Is that disclosed? I don't know if it is or not. I forget actually. But while we're doing that, this building that you're looking at right here, everybody, is called the Cartier building. Now, this is actually my favorite building during the holidays. I think they usually have the best Christmas lights. The building sits on New York City's 5th Avenue and East 52nd Street, right next to the Ferragamo building right here. Renee says, Tom, pretty soon the big pharmacies will be closed due to shoplifters. Now, I was also looking for that in the earnings report that Walgreens just put out. And that was a big concern of mine too. So what Renee is essentially saying is that, over the course of the last 2 years, let's just say for argument's sake, I love these flags here. Great American flag. But over the course of the last 2 years here, everybody, we've seen this big problem, not just in New York. It's not just exclusive to here. It's pretty much across the entire country of shoplifting, right? Of retail theft. Now, again, as we talk about friction in the transaction, chances are, if you live in New York or a major city, if you go into a Walgreens, if you go into a CVS, if you want to buy soap or just regular toiletries or whatever, it's probably going to be locked behind the plexiglass. So my whole thought process there was that it's probably going to impact sales a great deal. Because if somebody walks into the pharmacy, they don't want to press the customer service button, wait 5 minutes for the associate to walk over so they can unlock the plexiglass so you can go get your soap or your toothpaste or your shavers. Well, I guess so far that really hasn't played out. I mean, in full transparency, if you look at the earnings report that Walgreens just put out, they actually had a year-over-year and a month-over-month increase in revenue. They beat earnings expectations. So I don't know, it seems like people are still putting up with it, but I mean, in my personal experience, I don't think I could shop at those stores anymore. I'm just so on the go. I'm always in a rush. I don't have time to, even spend the 3 to 5 minutes to click the little customer service button for people to, unlock the thing, but we'll see. Hey, Tortellini, is good to see you. Welcome. Keith's pill pack by Amazon's pharmacy revenue is 110 million. Very nice. Austin City Limits, good to see you. Now guys, if you look all the way down 5th Avenue, you can see the Empire State Building. It's lit up in bright blue tonight. Let me catch up on some of the comments here. Yeah, PT Smith's is for much of the country, a pharmacy is a long drive. I think that plays even more into the thesis for delivery, right? I don't know, we'll watch the trend. I think it's going to be an important trend to watch. Felipe says, Tom, have we discussed Charles Schwab tonight? We haven't. I don't really think there's too much to discuss. Now, a lot of people are speculating that there's just going to be mass contagion, right? I think that is the discussion, perhaps, right? Since one domino fell, what is the next domino to fall? And yeah, I would agree. I've used the analogy on this live stream as the cockroach theory, right? I've used that analogy many times. So whenever there's a major bank failure, whenever there's a major catastrophe in the financial world or in the financial system, it's never just isolated to just one incident, right? It's the same thing if you take your son or daughter apartment shopping, when they're going off to college. Oh, look at 30 Rock tonight. This looks really nice. And a cockroach crawls out from under the counter. Well, you can best believe that there's going to be 3 more, probably maybe even 30 more cockroaches under the kitchen counter. It's never just one. So it all started with Silvergate, right? That was the first major domino to fall. Then you had Silicon Valley Bank. Then you had Signature Bank. And now everybody is worried about mass contagion. But we've sort of covered this almost to the point of ad nauseum here. They finally have all of the nice flowers up for the springtime here at Rockefeller Center. But look, we live in a system where, interest rates have gone up about 500 basis points in a little over a year, right? So the vast majority of bonds and the like that a lot of people have, or I should say a lot of banks and institutions have on the balance sheet, they're technically holding them at ridiculous losses. Now, it's only a problem if they're forced to sell, right? Because as we know, if you hold these bonds to maturity, then it's fine. You can just collect the interest and then, at the end of the maturity, or when it comes time that the bond matures, you get your principal back. But the problem with bank runs is that if everybody wants their money out of the bank all at once, well, a lot of these banks are going to be forced to fire sale these assets. But here's the thing, you're not going to sell these assets for parity, or dollar for dollar that you bought them at. If you bought 10-year maturity mortgage-backed securities at less than 2%, and now you try to sell them in today's marketplace where the Fed funds rate is 5%, well, you're probably only going to be able to get maybe 50 to 60 cents on the dollar. So that's a big problem. So mark-to-market accounting, I think, is very important to understand. But there's really nothing else in me personally I could worry about. I don't think I would be helping the situation by ripping my money around and moving it to another bank or this bank just because I think it's too big to fail or whatnot. I don't know. That's just sort of my opinion on the whole situation. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Now, here's a good piece of news. They finally took down the ice skating rink at Rockefeller Center, and it looks like they're actually taking the Zamboni out of here on a crane. Look at that. That is so cool that we're actually seeing that live. That's funny. I think they just took down the ice skating rink a couple days ago too. Flat smack says my thoughts are hyperinflation. Nah, maybe. I respect the opinion. CeeLo is here, says, hey Tom, what's up CeeLo, good to see you. Well, I mean, look at the dollar, right? If you want to look at, if you want to talk about like hyperinflation, look at the Dixie. Where's the Dixie trading at right now? Well, the Dixie's at 102. Now, we sort of talked about this at length yesterday, and this time last year, the Dixie was what, 115, 116, right? We hit an all-time record high. Well, not an all-time record high, but recent record high, and we've been selling off ever since, which has actually been quite bullish for stocks, and it's been giving the stock market a little bit of a bid. I wonder what they're going to do down here. Yeah, I wonder what they're going to do with Rockefeller Center for spring and summer. Should be interesting to watch. Interesting. Maybe we'll go around the other way. But yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting sort of point to watch about the shift to e-commerce spend in places like pharmacy, right? Anywhere you can reduce friction, I think that is where shoppers are going to go. Now, I think another industry that is really ripe for disruption over the next couple of years as it relates to the topic of friction, I think is the real estate business. But I think it's going to be very hard to, I don't really want to use the term automate, but they need to find a way to make real estate transactions a little bit more seamless. For anybody who's bought a piece of real estate, sold a piece of real estate, brokered a piece of real estate, it's a very cumbersome and laborious process, is it not? A lot of lawyers involved, a lot of legalese, a lot of paperwork. Now, I don't know the solution, but if I had to guess or if I had to bet, look at this. I think they're putting this away now for the whole winter. It's kind of cool to be able to see it live. I think over the next 10 years, you're going to have some sort of a major company be able to make real estate transactions a little bit more painless. And I think that'll be a good thing. For those of you who don't know, right here, where that crane is, that's actually where they have the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center. So I'm excited to see what they do for the spring and in the summer. I think winter's officially over now. The ice skating rink is out. They're taking the Zamboni out on a big crane. I'm not even sure where they're going to store this, but it's kind of cool to see. Boston Frank says if the public kept their money in the largest banks, they would not be at risk. So Boston Frank, that is the exact, that's, I guess, the theory of too big to fail, right? That's sort of what everybody is talking about. And that is sort of what's fueling this major contagion problem, right? And I think that's why a lot of the regional banks have been falling under a lot of pressure, because you got to understand, when Silicon Valley Bank, went under, and again, it's not to take any, pressure off of the management, because management was severely incompetent at Silicon Valley Bank. That spooked a lot of other people, and they started to pull their money out from regional banks that were totally unrelated from the situation. And the thought process was exactly that. Why would I risk having my money in a regional bank when I could just put my money with JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America? Because if those banks fail, they're automatically going to get bailed out, because that would literally mean it's going to be the end of the world as we know it if the government or the Federal Reserve let those banks fail, right? So it's the theory of too big to fail. I get it. I totally understand that sort of side of the equation, but this is sort of my opinion on that. My opinion is that that's not really healthy, in my view, for the consumer, right? The reason why the consumer has never had it any better in the United States is because they have so much choice, right? Think about all of the ridiculous choices that the consumers have in the United States with everything, right? The choice in what we can eat, the choice where we can live. That's what makes America fantastic, and that forces competition, right? That's what forces innovation. You even think about in the tech sector specifically. If you didn't have multiple choices, if you didn't have multiple competitors, well, why would Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase want to innovate and want to, try to attract customers and make life better for customers, right? Because there's nobody that's really competing with them. So I would personally not want to see an environment where we have just 4 big banks in America. But maybe that's the way it's going to go. I mean, there's nothing really I could do to control that. But I don't know, it's just the sort of way I think. I think the more choices a consumer has, it literally forces competition, right? It forces innovation. And I don't know, I really wouldn't want to live in a world where we have 4 big banks in the US. I mean, I guess it works in other countries, right? It works in other places where they have only a handful of big banks, but I don't know, I think it would just be too much concentration of power. Any thoughts there? I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think it's just not a big deal to have 4 big banks in America, right? Or do you think that it's healthy and important for the United States to have at least a robust regional banking system? I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Hey, Jimmy Chung says only 5 big banks in Canada. What's up, Jimmy? Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to see you. Cooking Bro says always support your local credit union. Yeah, credit unions too. Elizabeth Gill says I agree. Mimi says what if even the big banks create a financial reset? Well, that's what a lot of people are assuming, right? They're assuming that, we're at some point we're going to need a whole new financial system. And maybe that's true, because if you understand the financial system that we live in, it only works with the acquisition of new debt in perpetuity forever. And I think a lot of people are finally just recently starting to wake up and realize that, right? The system that we live in fundamentally in the United States, this fractional reserve lending, fractional reserve banking system, and just fiat currency in general, the only way it can survive is the acquisition of new debt in perpetuity forever. I mean, at this point, that's really the only way that it's going to sustain itself. I mean, the moment you start tightening, which the Federal Reserve is doing, you start to see things break, right? Let me see what Wendy England said. Let me see. I'll catch up on some of the comments. Hey, Brian says, good evening, Tom and everybody. I think it is important to have a bank and credit union network that can provide good services. John Marston 16 says, Tom, only use credit unions outside of my broker dealers. Kevin Ramsey says, I bank with PNC Bank. I can't see them going anywhere. Wendy England says, the big five in Canada are the people. Oh, and the people are protected as they are regulated, says Wendy England. Silversmith says, love a credit union. That means you are part owner, unlike a regular bank, says Silversmith. Well, here's another, here's another way to think about it, guys. Now, there's been a lot of criticism of banks as of late, and hear me out on this, because this is a good conversation. I'm seeing a lot of good comments here. But we also have to understand, we just talked about competition, right? However, the market in and of itself creates that competition. And I'll give you guys an example of that. Funny, we're standing outside of Chase Bank. But anyway, so banks compete for deposits via offering an attractive rate of interest, right? So now that we've established that, think about what the banks are competing with now. The banks are not only competing with themselves, they're competing with the US Treasury. And here's what I mean. Let me explain. Before the Silicon Valley Bank implosion about 3 weeks ago, the day before the implosion, you could have bought a 1-year Treasury that yields you 5.25%. Think about that. You could buy a 1-year Treasury risk-free. The government has never defaulted on its debt obligations. But you could buy a 1-year Treasury, 5.5%. It's not that interest rate now because we've had so much, bond buying. But you don't think consumers were noticing that and saying, hey, why am I leaving, $1 million in my bank account that's yielding me 0.0001% when I could just go to Treasury Direct and buy $1 million worth of US Treasuries at a 1-year maturity? That's a pretty safe and risk-free investment, specifically, or I should say, especially since we've had so much volatility in the equity market. Now, when you have volatility in the equity market, especially for older folks that are nearing retirement age, it tends to spook a lot of people. It tends to freak a lot of people out. I mean, they don't want to see their portfolios going up and down like a roller coaster. They just don't want to. So I think now that you have Treasury rates that are finally, after years and years of providing no material yield, I think a lot of people were just like, look, I'm sick of the stock market because it's just so volatile. COVID has made me so risk averse that I'm just going to rip my money out of the banks and just buy US Treasuries. And 5% on $1 million, you do the math. $50,000 is a pretty decent rate of return for just doing nothing, right? This is my favorite halal food place in the entire city. It's called Adele's Famous, and you don't have to take my word for it that it's so good. Check out the line. It extends all the way down to West 48th Street. So the line starts on 49th Street and goes all the way down to 48th Street. Hey, Brian says there needs to have modified bank regulation clauses that are preventative measures to avoid financial errors to prevent bank defaults, says Brian. Hey, Patrick, New York is here. Good to see you, Patrick. Welcome. Brian says, I've been with Bank of America for decades now, and have kept our accounts. They are more fact. If the small town we currently live in, Bank of America. Yeah, sorry about reading the chat so slow. The letters are so teeny. But yeah, I think there's multiple factors at play here, right? Interest rates have been going up, so that is competing with banks. And people are sort of waking up to the fact that, over the last 14 years, if you've kept your money in a bank, you were essentially punished, right? Savers were punished. So now that treasury yields are going up, I mean, people are just like, look, I'm going to put my money in U.S. Treasury. Yeah, we usually... Let's see if the buffering will go away as we walk down here. Hey, sunshine after rain, good to see you. Let me know in the chat if we're still buffering here. Hey, Strider 1239 says, Tom, have you thought about doing a food channel on the side? No, I don't want to do any of that, to be just very blunt. But good. Started the stream late, by the way. Check out this building. Court Theater. It's really nice. Diana's is just once in a while. Silversmith says, hydrogen cars are easy to emit water. Why don't they do it? Well, I mean, we briefly talked about hydrogen vehicles last night, and I think just the infrastructure is going to be very cumbersome to build all that out, right? You're going to need to convert gas stations into hydrogen stations. I just don't think that is too practical. I don't know, in my view. I don't know, we'll see. I told you guys about the, there was a whole, I think this guy was in Canada. I think it may have been Ottawa. I forget. Or maybe it was Toronto. But he says his hydrogen vehicle limits him from going to the United States because the range of the vehicle, there's no hydrogen station to be able to accommodate him to travel and see his family and friends in the US. So it's only good if it's just around, you know, the local neighborhoods, assuming you have, you know, hydrogen stations that are readily available at all times. All right, guys, we made it to Times Square. Very seldom do we come here. This is the corner of 7th Avenue and 48th Street. Cold night out here in New York. Hey, Deep Value Alex says, good evening, Tom. Talking about banks, you should check out the Citicorp building, wild architecture. Deep Value Alex, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here on this freezing cold New York City night. It's almost April and we're still in the high 30s, which is pretty unfortunate. But guys, did you see, I just saw a Disney sign here, so that sparked my memory. Did anybody see Bob Iger announcing a recent round of layoffs at Disney? And I think it's going to include about 8,000 people at Disney are going to get laid off. But it's going to be in 3 rounds. It's going to be in 3 specific rounds. The first round of layoffs actually started this week. The second round is going to be in the second week of April, I believe. And the third and final round of layoffs at Disney are going to be late summer. Now, Bob Iger says that this is going to shore up about $5.5 billion for the company, or save the company about $5.5 billion. So this is just the latest company to announce layoffs. You know, we saw Facebook come out and announce yet another round of layoffs that is going to be the same size, if not bigger, than that of last year. So I think this is a really important trend we need to watch, especially since we've been getting all this housing data out that is showing pending home sales are starting to go back up again. So I think the only catalyst that could really send the housing market into a tailspin is unemployment going up. Now, we still have unemployment rate at historical, pretty much all-time record lows. So maybe, the tech sort of layoffs are just the first domino to fall to spark layoffs in other industries. Hey, Kanar Bar, good to see you. Big Blue Boys, his company's hoarding cash, preparing for prolonged high rates. I think so. I mean, Fed Chair Jerome Powell specifically said that if the market is anticipating a rate cut in 2023, that they're wrong. And if you look at the bond market, that's exactly what the bond market is anticipating. The bond market is anticipating rate cuts. But according to Fed Chair Jerome Powell, that's not going to happen. Check out this building. I think they just completed this here in Times Square. I think this is one of the newest additions to New York City's Times Square. Kind of interesting. In the distance, you'll see the H&M building. And then all the way on the right, you'll see the ball that they drop on New Year's Eve. A lot of people out walking around in Times Square. Hey, MK says, wish I knew how to make money from everybody living off credit cards for 6 months. Rain of the Machines is mostly mid to upper management from acquisitions. Christine says, yes, I work for Disney. The top dogs are the first to go. Wow. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? If you're equating 7,000 layoffs to about $5.5 billion worth of savings, cost savings for the company, it's probably a lot of middle management people that have, big salaries. We talked about corporate bloat, so that makes sense. Now, another big piece of news actually on Wall Street, but we've already talked about this before the news broke. I guess we'll talk about it now since we're outside of Morgan Stanley. But this year, the average bonus on Wall Street fell 26% last year to $176,000. Now, that's the biggest bonus decline since 2008. And obviously, this was to be expected, right? Because Wall Street pre-tax profits fell 26% in 2022. So if you think about how an investment bank makes money, right? They make the lion's share of their money from fee income. So think about 2021. 2021, the average Wall Street bonus was, I think, just a hair under $250,000. However, that was for good reason. There was record profits on Wall Street in 2021 because there was so much fiscal and monetary stimulus floating throughout the economy. So if you think about initial public offerings or IPOs, 2021 was a record banner year on Wall Street for IPOs. And a lot of the investment banks make a killing off of the initial public offerings for the equity underwriting fees and the advisory fees, and not only in the initial public offering market, but also in M&A, which is an acronym that stands for mergers and acquisitions. So in layman's terms, the higher the deal flow on Wall Street, the more companies that are going public and the more companies that are acquiring other companies, that means more fee income for the major investment banks. Now, when the Federal Reserve started to raise interest rates going into 2022, the IPO market fell off of a cliff. So initial public offerings in 2022 were down 99%, quite literally down 99%, as well as M&A activity fell off a cliff too because money is more expensive. So I'm not really surprised by that statistic that states that Wall Street investment banks paid out some of their skimpiest bonuses on record. It's because they didn't make that much money in 2022, especially compared to 2021. Hey, Zach Drews, it seems like all they know is buy stuff with fresh new money that never stops coming. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, man. But guys, Times Square is packed today for a Thursday. Joe Driver says IPOs this year are few and far between. Yeah, I mean, the IPO market has totally, I mean, the spigot is really shut off. But I think that creates the most opportunity. And I think I've said this once before. Now, it's actually, it may sound counterintuitive, but it's actually more important to pay attention to the IPO market when there's very, very few initial public offerings coming to market. Now, here's the reason why, and we'll try to venture into Times Square a little bit, and then we'll sort of turn back. But when times are good and when liquidity is awash in the system, it's very, very easy for companies to raise money and go public. But when times are tough and money is expensive and the stock market is going down, well, investors are very, very reluctant to part ways with their cash. So if a company can become public during a significant bear market like the one that we're going through right now, you really, really, really need to be paying attention to that specific company, because if you can bring your company public and get investors to part money or to part ways with their money during bear markets, the company is probably of premium quality. Now, there is an IPO I'm following. I don't own any of it, but it's called Mobileye. Maybe we'll talk about it at a later date, at a later time. But this is a company that was able to go public during a significant bear market. So I think it's important, you know, for as a little bit of a tip there. It's more important to pay attention to companies going public during bear markets. Any old junk of a company could go public during a bull market. We'll try to go all the way down to the NASDAQ, might as well. Hey, Robert is here. Good to see you, Robert. Welcome. Irish Toker is here. Ibrahim Azam. Good to see you, Ibrahim. Teresa Diaz, welcome. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams about 5-6 days a week, starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This is where they do the vast majority of the Broadway shows here. I think this is the only show that I've ever seen, which is The Lion King. Hey, Zach Drew says X Energy from Oak Ridge, Tennessee just went public through a SPAC merger. They make Triso X fuel for advanced nuclear reactors. Wow. I'll have to take a look at that. I'm not a big fan of SPACs. I think you guys sort of know why. But, you know, speaking of SPACs, that's a pretty good example of all of the nonsense that went public last year, right? Everybody, you know, was putting out a new special purpose acquisition company, which is the, you know, the SPAC is an acronym for special purpose acquisition company. But to me, it was just pretty much a cash grab on Wall Street to cash out and make a ton of money. So very, very seldom are SPACs any good. But I'm going to check it out. Let me take a screenshot of it, and I'll be sure to check it out. Now we're coming up on the NASDAQ building. Gary Carpenter says, why so late tonight? I was busy. I was actually, I was looking at a couple of properties today, and man, were they really, really beautiful. So I was with some investors looking at some properties, one of which is down on Grand Street, if you guys want to check it out. It's a really, really beautiful property. Now, here's the interesting thing about it is it's actually, the whole building is totally brand new, but it may not look brand new because the only thing that's still intact, I would say the original structure, is the facade of the building, which I think is from the 1800s. So if you're familiar with Soho, Soho is very famous for those very classic loft style buildings where you have the cast iron framing on the outside, and on the inside are these really massive grand ceilings. Sometimes you could even have 10 to 15 foot ceilings in one of these lofts. So if you want to check out the building that I was looking at today, it's 74 Grand Street. It's really, really stunning. Now, I think it's 5 floors. Everything is such an amazing open concept, open floor plan. The penthouse at the top, the views are really, really stunning. You could see the Empire State Building, you see One Vanderbilt, pretty much all the way up to Billionaires Row too. And now that the weather's getting nice, I think that'll actually be usable. But a really unique building, really cool, right in the heart of Soho. Really good location. It's a corner lot too, and all of the buildings around it are already developed, so you get a lot of natural light in there. But yeah, take a look at it if you want to sort of see some photos of a real classic Soho style loft. I mean, those buildings, as you guys know, are some of my favorite. Yeah, Ed Dunkel says I think each of the units go for right around there, which is comparable to some of the other buildings in Soho, in and around that area. 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. But really cool stuff. Now, the rents, if you wanted to rent something like that, let's say if you wanted to rent a full unit, we'll make a left here and then we'll go up. I may have to end the stream a little bit early. I got to be up early tomorrow. But if you wanted to rent something like that, you could probably command, depending on the floor, you could probably command anywhere from 14.5 to maybe 17.5, depending on how updated it is. But yeah, I mean, if I had the money, I'd definitely love to rent it. Yeah, so Stylish Bunny, what was up with that? Does anybody know what was up with that? So Stylish Bunny says, I heard the guy who won the bid on the Flatiron didn't pay for it. Well, he didn't pay the deposit, or he didn't make the down payment. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really looked into it, but that is weird, right? So I read one article, and I guess the guy who bid on it works at some investment firm that really nobody knows about. And again, I don't know this guy. I don't really want to speak on his behalf. But from the looks of it, it seems like he just did the bidding and he didn't think he was going to win. Which I don't know how they're going to work that out from a legal standpoint. But if that's the case, that's actually kind of hilarious, right? This guy just goes to the auction and bids on the property knowing that he would never be able to buy it anyway. I mean, man, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I would assume there's probably some legal recourse on that, right? Hey, Nick is here. Says, in your opinion, what is the most overpriced section of New York City real estate? Overpriced? Well, I think overpriced is like a subjective term, right? Because, a person that is not familiar with New York City and a person who doesn't like New York City, for example, would think everything is overpriced here, technically, right? Let's say if you're from Texas, you could, depending on what part of Texas you're from, you could probably buy a 4,200 square foot house for 300 or 400,000 bucks, when you could buy $1 million apartment here and it's probably going to be less than 1,000 square feet, right? So I guess the term overpriced is subjective, but I don't know. I think that my favorite neighborhoods, I don't know, I would say further up on the Upper East Side I think is a little bit overpriced in my view. But again, that's just depending on my personal taste. This is a really good shot of the Empire State Building, by the way. As you go up into East Harlem, I think it's a little bit, for that neighborhood, I think a lot of the rents are, like, why would you rent there where you can get something, you know, in the Lower East Side, where it's a way better neighborhood, in my opinion, right? Now, some people may like it up there. I don't. But the rents are comparable in those two neighborhoods. Oh, okay, somebody says by overpriced, you mean worst return on your investment? I could say that. Anywhere near the Port Authority bus terminal, I think, is dead money. In my opinion. That's just my opinion. Anywhere near the Port Authority bus terminal, I think, is a big no-go. I would never buy anything or never rent anything 4 blocks north, 4 blocks south of the Port Authority bus terminal. I would stay away from that with everything I got. Anybody know why the Empire is lit up in all blue tonight? It looks beautiful. MK says the upper income levels are also higher than one can command in states like Texas or South Carolina, says MK. Stacy says all of Manhattan is overpriced in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I guess, again, it really depends because, you know, typically speaking, if you work in Manhattan, right? Let's say if you're not from New York City, right? And you graduate college and you get a really good, you know, law job in New York, you get a good banking job, or you get a good tech job in New York City. Well, if you look at the data, it's probably going to pay you a lot more. The same tech job is probably going to pay you a lot more in New York than it would, say, you know, in Austin or in Miami. Right? The same investment banking job is going to pay you more if you work in the New York office as opposed if you work in the Houston office, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. Now, speaking of that, so it's a little bit of an interesting segue. So we briefly had a discussion and talked about how Wall Street bonuses were down the most since 2008. Now, this actually really impacts New York City and New York State a lot. Because when you think of New York, you think of Wall Street, you think of finance, and it is a major tax generator for not only the state of New York, but for the city. So if you want to look at the actual data, the securities industry plays a major role in city and state tax revenues. Well, let me cross here real quick while we got the light. It accounts for about 22% of state tax collections and 8% of New York City collections. So even though, you know, oftentimes you'll see, you know, the governor of New York and the mayor of New York City, you know, bashing Wall Street, the state of New York really needs Wall Street, right? And that is why it is very concerning to me that for the first time in history, there's more employees of JP Morgan Chase that work out of the Houston office than work in New York, which is kind of crazy. Or I should say there's more JP Morgan Chase employees that work in Texas than work in New York. And it really shouldn't be that way. I mean, if you think about JP Morgan Chase, you think about New York City, you think about Park Avenue. So it's a very big risk to New York. And not just New York. Think about what just recently happened, everybody, in Illinois, right? Specifically in Chicago. I believe, now don't quote me on this, but I think this is true. Ken Griffin from Citadel Securities, I think he was the #1 taxpayer in the state of Illinois. And now he's moved to Florida. So this is going to be something that, you know, we really have to think about here as a state, because it is very expensive to live here in New York. And it is also very expensive to run and operate New York. Okay, the MTA is running at extreme deficits. You look at the Long Island Railroad. You need high tax revenues here. in order to sustain all that. And if you start pushing people out because the cost of living is too high, the taxes are too high, New York could have a pretty big problem. So, I'm optimistic that it'll work itself out, but I don't think higher taxes are the answer, because you're just going to start pushing more and more and more people out. Kind of interesting. Hey, Mark is here. Good to see you, Mark. Evan Weeks, what's up? This is good evening, all. Yeah, Evan, we were just talking about, we got some data out of New York State. Well, in general, Wall Street bonuses were down there by the lowest percentage since 2008. But we knew that already because deal flow on Wall Street has fallen off a cliff since 2021, right? 2021 was a banner year for the major investment banks as it relates to equity underwriting fees, big M&A advisory fees, and initial public offerings, right? Goldman Sachs had a record year. I think JP Morgan Chase set the record for the share of investment banking revenue overall. But again, as interest rates started to go up and liquidity sucked out of the system, the stock market started to decline. Well, the IPO market essentially shut off, right? Not a lot of companies were doing deals. M&A activity was down significantly. So with that being said, that means less revenue, less profitability for the banks, which translates to smaller bonuses on Wall Street. I think the average bonus in 2022 was about $127,000. Still pretty good. Now, I would like to say those numbers are heavily skewed, I would say, because you have some bonuses on Wall Street that are in the millions and in the millions. And then you have some analysts that get like a $35,000 to $50,000 bonus, which is still pretty nice, right? But if you take the average of all of them, it can be pretty skewed, in my view. Hey, Audra. Hey, Tom. How are you? When are you going back to Florida? I will be back tomorrow night. I would like to remind everybody, tomorrow night there will be no live stream because I will be doing some traveling. I have to take care of some business down in Florida. And then I should be back in about a week here in New York. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting back. Looking forward to getting back in the 80-degree weather and out of the freezing, although it wasn't too bad this time around in New York. I got to go back up to 57th Street, so I might as well take you guys with me. Wow. Red Dog 08. This is first time here, interesting walk. Thank you so much for your incredibly generous and kind $100 donation, dude. That is very kind of you. You really didn't have to do that. But we appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you supporting the channel. But man, you didn't need to do that, but that's really nice of you. I do appreciate it very much. And thank you for being here. Red Dog 08. Welcome to Walks on Wall Street. We do these live streams about 6 to 7 days a week. We start at 8:30 p.m. We walk around New York and Miami discussing the financial markets and the economy overall. So you're more than welcome here, and thanks so much for your generosity. We appreciate it. I'll give you guys one more look at the fountain. Hey, touring different places. When is the renovations going to be completed at Penn Station? Probably later 2024. The whole Penn project. If that's the case, I think 2025. But if you guys haven't been in Penn Station as of late, it's a night and day difference. It's actually really gorgeous there. They lifted the ceilings, they elevated the ceiling heights. So they're doing a good job so far. MK says, love your perspectives, Tom. Thank you, MK. Appreciate it. Meld says, Tom puts out consistently great content. I appreciate it. Look, I have a lot of fun doing it. I have a ton of fun doing it. And also, guys, can you believe, like, would you guys ever have thought in a million years that we would have 29,000 people subscribe to the channel? I mean, that's just mind-blowing to me. I'm very, very humbled by it. I'm glad that you guys enjoy the conversations so much that you would want to come back every night. Look, I think it's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, so. And look, I think we meet a lot of cool people, a lot of good friends. So I'm very appreciative for all of you. Yeah, Andrew F. He's Barefoot Vlogger is I don't want to get the name wrong. I think he's from what, Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, right? Or Sheepshead Bay. But yeah, now he's you know, another New Yorker living in Florida. You know, I've noticed we have sort of very similar personalities. Barefoot Vlogger loves the ocean, loves the hot weather. It's like exactly me, you know. Being on Long Island, you know, my whole family is from Long Island. You know, every summer you're at Jones Beach, Robert Moses. I just love the ocean. I can't escape it. And if I could have that all year round, I mean, Southern Florida is exactly that. So. Hey, look who it is. Marcelo Gill says, you're so close to my favorite place. Yeah, UBS. So Marcelo Gill's daughter works here at UBS, and you are correct. They did make a big acquisition of Credit Suisse, about a $3.2 billion acquisition. Now, is it true? I think they're getting a new CEO too, right? UBS. This is a major Swiss bank in Switzerland. It used to trade under the ticker symbol CS. But, you know, really ever since the financial crisis, not just Credit Suisse, I don't really want to pick on them, but a lot of other European banks, such as Deutsche Bank, have been major problems. So now in Switzerland, you have sort of like this big monopoly of a bank, which is now UBS. Now, unfortunately, I think there's probably going to be, for obvious reasons, right? A lot of layoffs, a lot of job cuts at Credit Suisse. It usually happens that way. Usually the acquirer keeps their jobs, and unfortunately the acquisition target, that's where the lion's share of the layoffs will probably be, unfortunately. We'll see what happens. I mean, Credit Suisse has a pretty big presence here in New York, right outside of Madison Square Park. We walk past that all the time when I work out of the 31st Street WeWorks office. Credit Suisse has their New York City headquarters right there. Wow, Patrick, yeah, Patrick, New York, one of the first people here, my friend. As well as Joe Hernandez. Joe Hernandez, long time no see. God bless you. Thanks so much. And Sunshine After Rain, you were as well. Those were the days. Those definitely were the days. Now, I'm leaving you guys off at 57th Street. I think we covered the vast majority of what we wanted to cover. I think the only thing I left out tonight is the Wells Fargo news. Now, it's almost like I'm at a loss for words when I'm speaking about Wells Fargo, because they commit fraud after fraud after fraud. It's just like you can't even keep count. It's like I lose track of how much fraud the bank commits. It's almost embarrassing. So Wells Fargo is set to pay $97 million for sanctions compliance failure. So that's good. Now, keep me honest here. Let me try to cross here. Was it not Wells Fargo that was opening customer accounts without their permission? Didn't they just have a big settlement? Like, I think it was $1 billion settlement because they were actively opening accounts. Like they were physically opening bank accounts on the behalf of customers without their consent, which is just totally bizarre. I don't even know how you would do that or why you would do that. But, oh, David S. says, yes, it was. Meld says, I've had a Wells Fargo account for 20 years. Should I change? I can't tell you what to do. I'm just making an observation that Wells Fargo is always in the news for some sort of scandal. I mean, right? I mean, keep me honest. Is it not a big coincidence? Like every single time where we have some sort of a banking fraud, it involves Wells Fargo. Every time. So today, I think it was breaking news right before I started. The bank was hit with about a $97 million fine, which I guess to them is nothing, right? If it's just the cost of doing business for them. So it's just so crazy how much. Yeah, Audrey says, yeah, they have been very, very shady. The Ralph says, the average person who did that would be getting some serious prison time. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a pretty big. Ooh.
Don't worry about it, Don't worry about it.
That was almost a big collision. I guess we'll walk. But yeah, it's. Let me just make a move around this newsstand here. Yeah, it seems like the banks have, in some cases, like a free pass. Now remember, in 2008, I think there was literally only one banker that went to prison. Is that right? I think it was just some guy had probably had to take the fall for something. But after all of that fraud, right, especially in the mortgage market, with deceptive sales practices, throwing people into adjustable rate mortgages, when they really didn't even know about it, right? There's some stories that were coming out of 2008 where some people were like, hey, we bought this house and we got this mortgage and our banker never told us anything about adjustable rates or teaser rates, and they got away with it. It's kind of crazy how that works. I don't even know how, but Hey, UniJ23 says, thank you, Tom, for a great stream. Have a good trip to Miami. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, UniJ22. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good to get 1 week in 80-degree weather, and hopefully by the time I come back to New York, it's going to be warm again. Hopefully, we'll see. But next week is going to be a big week. It is already the first week of April, and you guys know what that means. So the first business day of the month, we hear from the Institute for Supply Management as they release the PMI numbers, the Purchasers Managing Index. I think we have to wait here. And, this is a very, very big leading economic indicator that we could use to try to predict GDP growth in the United States. Now, yesterday we got a pretty important piece of leading economic news, and that was when we heard from the National Association of Realtors with the pending home sales. Now, again, we could use pending home sales as a leading economic indicator for existing home sales. So pending home sales usually leads existing home sales by about 2 to 3 months, right? Because it takes about maybe a month or two for the transactions to actually close and the transactions to actually settle. So Mike MTL says, will the PMI be down? Maybe not. Maybe not. Now, again, this is so critical because it's not necessarily the number that's important in the PMIs, right? Because here's what they teach you in your Econ 101 class. They teach you that if the PMIs are above 50, that signals expansion in the manufacturing sector of the US economy. And if the PMIs are below 50, that signals contraction. But that's actually, in my opinion, not the appropriate way to interpret the PMI report, in my view. It's more so along the lines the trajectory of those PMIs that is very important, because as you know, the economy is very fluid. So we want to know as investors where the economy is going and which part of the transitionary phase are we in, right? So are you transitioning from contraction to expansion, or are you transitioning from expansion to contraction? And that's why, if you remember, in 2021, when the markets were at all-time record highs, we were covering right here on the live stream, guys, something's not right. We were like, something is not right here. The market continues to hit all-time record highs day after day, but the PMIs are rolling over. But if you watch CNBC and you watch Bloomberg, they would say, the PMIs came in at 55. That signals expansion. But you're not looking into the data. You're not doing appropriate analysis on that data, because the PMIs topped out at 58. And then we had a reading of 57. Then we had a reading of 55. That's significant deceleration. So if you wait for the PMIs to be below 50, I mean, you've totally missed the trade. So it's important now that the PMIs are below 50. Maybe we could look for a change in the manufacturing sector of the economy from contraction to expansion. So I think that's what we should be looking for. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I think we should be looking at that trajectory. And yet again, for me, I'm not that smart, so I need to see this at a visual. And that's where Microsoft Excel comes into play. So if you can go on the Institute for Supply Management's website and download all of the data going back to, the 60s or the 70s, or however far back it goes back, you can actually chart this, and you'll be able to see the PMIs in real time. And when you create that model in Excel, you've essentially created a model of the business cycle in the United States. But we'll talk a little bit about that next week, actually, which is kind of crazy. It's already April, believe it or not. Now, I do got to get the train, but I want to thank you all for walking and talking with me tonight here in New York City. I want to also thank once again Red Dog 08 for his very generous $100 donation. And hopefully I see you guys in Miami. We'll be doing this live stream probably on Sunday. Okay, I don't want to promise Saturday because I got a lot of stuff going on. But we should be live from downtown Miami or South Beach. Well, probably not South Beach. I want to stay away from there until all the spring breakers leave. But I'll see you guys Sunday. So have a great weekend. Stay safe. Be blessed. And let's go University of Miami, because I think the fire truck's coming out. Let me cross the street. I think the University of Miami is playing in the Final Four for the first time in history. And that guy almost got clocked by the fire truck. First time in school history, University of Miami is in the Final Four. So congrats to you guys. So Austin City Limits, thank you so much for joining us. Andrew F. If you guys are new here, feel free to click the subscribe button, share the show with your friends. Oh, also, we're finally on Substack, finally. So if you look in the description of this video, if you click on our Substack link, you could sign up to receive our free Behind the Street newsletter. So feel free to do that. Gary Carpenter, thank you so much. Nick, Zada, Sunshine After Rain, appreciate it. Zozo Bob, The Mighty Bull, Joe Driver, Joan K, Meld, British Grey, Zach Drew, Patrick New York, touring different places, Audra, Marcelo Gill, Jeff W277, and to The Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there's always a bull market somewhere and you just need to know where to look. Guys, enjoy your weekend, be safe, and I'll see you guys Sunday. Enjoy your weekend.